There's not long to go until the 2026 World Cup kicks off. Who do you think will be the one to touch the trophy? Messi, Di Maria, De Paul or Nusret? I don't know who the last person to touch it was, but in 1966 a dog touched the trophy. Yes, you heard that right. In 1966, shortly before the tournament was due to start in London, the trophy went missing from a stamp exhibition, and a letter arrived later stating, £15,000 or we'll melt the trophy. The authorities panicked and reported the matter to the police. The thieves were caught, but the cup was nowhere to be found. Exactly 1 week later, a dog named Pickles found the cup wrapped in newspaper amongst the bushes in a garden. The dog's owner was awarded a prize, and the dog was given a lifetime supply of free dog food. However, Pickles' efforts came to a rather pointless end years later. The reason for this is that after Brazil won the tournament for the third time in 1970, the original Jules Rimet trophy was permanently awarded to the country. However, exactly 13 years later, the trophy was stolen from the Rio Football Federation building, and although those responsible were apprehended, the original trophy was never recovered. As a result, today a replica version is displayed in place of the historic trophy. It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? But this actually happened. Wait, though, the funniest part is at the end of the video. I wish someone had told Nusret this back in 2022. Another important detail about this trophy is that people are generally not allowed to touch it with their bare hands. I'm not talking about the trophy held by those fake footballers I mentioned, but the original trophy designed by FIFA, which is kept under lock and key in Switzerland. Only FIFA and heads of state are allowed to touch that trophy. In 2014, Rihanna held the trophy with her bare hands, kissed it and took a photo. I suppose FIFA might have faced a protocol crisis. Anyway, putting the trophy aside, I'll share a piece of information that will shock you even more, but first, I need to make sure you're on board, because subscribing to Factball is your right too. By the way, have you ever seen a World Cup final played with 2 balls? In the first World Cup final in 1930, the Uruguay and Argentina players wanted to play with their own balls, but they couldn't reach a compromise. In the end, the first half was played with Argentina's ball and the second half with Uruguay's, and Uruguay won the match. The Argentinians might have been upset, but they'll be even more upset when they hear about Article 14. Among the football facts that will surprise you, number 5 is a referee who officiated a match in a suit, and this incident occurred during the very same Uruguay-Argentina match. Referee Jean Langanis paid no heed to the 100,000 people in the stadium and officiated the match in a tweed jacket, tie and golf trousers. Don't be too quick to judge, because in those days refereeing was considered a gentleman's job and formal attire was mandatory. If something like this were to happen at the 2026 World Cup, he'd be torn to shreds on Twitter by the evening. Incidentally, the 1930 World Cup might just be the most absurd tournament ever, as Uruguay hosted it but only 4 European teams took part: France, Belgium, Romania and Yugoslavia. Of course, back then there were no luxury planes or private jets to transport the players, so they boarded a passenger ship and spent 15 days crossing the ocean. The interesting thing is that there weren't just footballers on the ship. FIFA President Jules Rimet, the World Cup trophy, and the tournament's referees were all on the same ship. Just imagine, do you think any team president or footballer today would accept such conditions? Do you think football has increasingly turned into a business rather than a passion? Please share your thoughts in the comments. I'll even give you a 7th piece of information on this topic. For the 2010 South Africa World Cup, Adidas produced a ball and even NASA tested it. The result was surprising to everyone. Because the ball was extremely smooth, it created turbulence in the air and suddenly changed direction. Once it exceeded 80 kilometers per hour, no one could predict where it would go. Key goalkeepers of the era, such as Buffon and Casillas, complained, saying it felt like a cheap beach ball bought from a supermarket. Goalkeepers were making poor decisions and conceding embarrassing goals. Indeed, the rate of goalkeeping errors broke records in that tournament. Speaking of goalkeepers, here's another surprising fact, but I have a question for you. Who do you think is the oldest player to have ever played in a World Cup? Write your answer in the comments now. In 2018, Egypt's legendary goalkeeper Essam El Hadari took to the pitch against Saudi Arabia at the age of 45 years and 161 days, breaking the record for the oldest player to feature in a World Cup. He even saved a penalty in the 39th minute. Age really is just a number. By the way, speaking of the World Cup and goalkeepers, does a particular player spring to mind? This goalkeeper only plays in the World Cup and delivers truly exceptional performances. Yes, that name is Ochoa. I doubt any of us have ever watched Ochoa in a match outside the World Cup. In 9th place is Roger Milla, the oldest player to score a goal in the World Cup. He retired in 1990, but in 1994 the president himself rang him up and he returned to football. At the age of 42 years and 39 days, he scores a goal, runs over to the corner flag, does a belly dance and celebrates. These days, however, footballers either retire or are on the verge of retiring once they pass the age of 35. But I'm making an exception for Klose, because even though he was the top scorer of this tournament, nobody is talking about him. Between 2002 and 2014, he scored a total of 16 goals, leaving Nazario behind. The truly tragicomic aspect is that he broke this record in the match where Germany thrashed Brazil 7-1. For Ronaldo Nazario, it must have been one of the worst days of his life. Not only was the record taken from him, but his team was utterly humiliated. In fact, Nazario had experienced a similar situation at the 2002 World Cup. The media were reporting day and night on whether he would be able to play in the semi-final due to a groin injury. But Ronaldo turned the tables and made a move that completely shocked everyone. He left just a triangular patch of hair on the front of his head and shaved the rest completely off. The next day, no one was talking about the injury. Everyone was talking about his hair. Years later, he admitted to it. But there's another, even more surprising story about Ronaldo, and that's the 1998 France final. Hours before the match, Ronaldo was convulsing in his hotel room bed, foaming at the mouth and unable to breathe. His roommate, Roberto Carlos, screamed, and the camp was in chaos. They managed to stop him from swallowing his tongue at the last moment and rushed him to hospital. He was dropped from the starting lineup, with Edmundo taking his place. But Ronaldo turned up at the stadium saying, "I'm fine, I want to play." He was included in the squad at the last minute. If you want to hear even more fascinating details about the players, don't forget to watch our next video. In that one, I'll reveal 20 facts that will shock you. Now, in 13th place is a man obsessed with astrology, Raymond Domenech. This manager doesn't select his squad based on football, but on star signs. He doesn't pick Leo players for defence because he says they make mistakes when putting on a show on the pitch. He doesn't trust Scorpios at all. They're prone to betrayal. They're destructive. And Robert Pires, one of the in-form French players of the era, a Scorpio. He wasn't selected for the 2006 World Cup squad. The reason, it said, was his star sign. No tactical analysis, just astrological analysis. These aren't untold football stories, but they're of the hard-to-believe variety. Just imagine, if Jose Mourinho didn't pick Mbappe for Real Madrid's squad, think about what would happen in the football world. At the start of the video, I said the Argentinians would be disappointed by point 14 because Argentina could face poor results at the 2026 World Cup. I'm not saying this, the data is. In 2002, France failed to even score a goal and didn't make it out of the group stage. Italy in 2010, Spain in 2014, and Germany in 2018 all suffered the same fate. So, who do you think is the favourite for the 2026 World Cup? Who will win the trophy? In my opinion, if Brazil play in their white kit, they won't win a single match. Why do I think that? Let me explain. In 1950, Brazil hosted the World Cup at home. The final was Brazil versus Uruguay. There were 200,000 people at the Maracana Stadium, and Brazil were wearing white. Uruguay won 2-1, and Brazil were devastated. The Football Association cursed the white kit and retired it, and this incident is known as the Maracanazo. In 16th place is an incident that makes you wonder, Can it really be this bad? The 2006 World Cup, the Australia versus Croatia match, English referee Graham Poll must have been distracted that day. Perhaps he'd had an argument with his wife, because no referee could possibly make such a mistake otherwise. He shows Croatian player Josip Šimunić a yellow card in the 61st minute. In the 90th minute, he shows a second yellow card but forgets to produce the red. Why? He mistook Šimunić for the Australian player Craig Moore. Šimunić remained on the pitch. In the 90-plus third minute, as the match ended, Šimunić walked up to the referee and shoved him. Poll shows the third yellow card, but only then is he able to produce the red. So, in that match, 3 yellow cards were required before a red card could be shown. In 17th place is Mexico, who have participated in the tournament 17 times. When you think of Mexico, Ochoa comes to mind, but even Ochoa couldn't have prevented this record, because Mexico have lost 28 of the 60 matches they've played in World Cups. This makes Mexico the team with the most defeats. These aren't random football facts, they're harsh realities. Before moving on to point 18, I strongly recommend you watch the next video, and it is very likely that crime rates across Brazil will drop significantly once the World Cup begins in a month's time, because during the 2014 tournament, whenever the national team stepped onto the pitch, daily life across the country almost completely paused. Banks temporarily closed, the streets became unusually quiet, government offices slowed down, and millions of people stayed focused on the matches, according to police reports. During game time, the streets were at their safest for nearly 90 minutes, and in a country where football means so much emotionally, it is hard to even imagine the atmosphere after a devastating defeat like 7-1. There are, of course, reports suggesting that another change occurred during the World Cup, specifically in birth rates, as was the case in Germany following the 2006 World Cup. Germany hosted the tournament that year, and it is reported that an increase in the number of births was observed in some hospitals during the months coinciding with approximately 9 months after the tournament's conclusion, with the rate rising by around 10 to 15% in certain regions. This phenomenon is generally presented as an interesting statistical observation rather than a definitive scientific finding, and is frequently cited when discussing the far-reaching impact that major football events can have not only within the stadium, but also on the general flow of daily life. And now we come to the final point, featuring Cameroon's goalkeeper Andre Onana. During the 2022 World Cup, he had a row with Coach Song, and things escalated. Eventually, Onana was dropped from the squad. Surprisingly, Onana was spotted in a Cameroonian neighbourhood playing football barefoot on a dirt pitch with his childhood friends. But there, he wasn't playing as a goalkeeper, he was playing as a striker. Ahead of the 2026 World Cup, we've listed the 20 most surprising facts about the World Cup for you. We hope you've enjoyed it. Goodbye.